It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we begin a Tuesday, Gary, what do you know?
Who don't wear the ribbon? I'm
Please.
Sorry.
We got to make the ribbon happen.
I had to start out with that today because I was thinking about when I saw Independent Bob this past weekend at the golf tournament, and I'd mentioned yesterday that his hands were, his hands weren't as animated as they normally were. Mm-hmm. They normally are, but he was talking about the anti-Semitism that exists today and the pro-terrorist mindset that exists. You see, almost close to half of Gen Z has sympathy with Hamas.
Yeah.
And this was Independent Bob, and let me just give you, this is my impersonation of Independent Bob. How can the LGBTQ, what's wrong with them? How can they possibly support Hamas? Hamas would kill them in a second. And I did you see, I was doing the hand thing.
Oh, okay.
But that was, because his voice went up, he's just like, it makes no sense. And I started thinking yesterday that there's a pattern there, and this is why it is impossible to communicate, and you need to communicate if you're going to debate, right?
Yeah.
Think about this. You and I, because I was doing a little bit of thinking yesterday. I had 5 minutes, and so instead of watching Married with Children reruns, I decided to do just a little bit of thinking, and I started going through my mind. There seems to be a pattern here, with the radical transgender movement, how feminists completely flipped. And I guess we could say feminist for Hamas, too, because there's the feminist for Hamas groups that are out there. But on the radical transgender movement, it makes no sense. I mean, here they, for years, decades upon decades upon decades upon decades, centuries, women fought for certain rights, and then in a minute they go, sorry, the man gets to decide what a woman is because we're too stupid and we have no idea what a woman is whatsoever, so a woman can be whatever a woman wishes to be, and we'll let the man define what a woman is, and a man compete against a woman, and that's all fine with us. And you sit there and you go, what happened? How does that happen? And then you think about it. When you see those the signs out there, the LGBTQ plus whatever it is now, for Hamas.
Right.
And you're just like, you shake your head. You're just like, what happens to a person, and how do you communicate with the person? Because think about the gay rights movement in America. Mm-hmm. Everything that has gone on over the last 100 years in our society on that. Mm-hmm. Think about the buildup to gay marriage and the Democrats promoting love is love. What is hate now love? I mean, it's the most bizarre thing that you go from, I am a victim. I am a victim of an oppressive society in the United States that will not let me marry. And all of a sudden, these people want to kill us? Let's support the people that wish our annihilation is now.
Well, I think it's now come full circle where the paths have crossed on the streams, where you had love is love, violence is violence, then silence is violence, and now violence is love.
Yes, I mean, it is absolutely beyond me. If you want to know why conservatives say, I can't communicate with these people, they don't connect the dots in any type of logical way. Everything is pure rage and emotion. And you get down to it and you say, but what is that rage and emotion about? Why would somebody clearly support their own annihilation?
Well, here's my question for the rank-and-file Democrat who has voted Democrat all of their life and looks at the radical behavior and is wondering what in the world is going on with the Democratic Party. You absolutely cannot look at the Democratic Party and say they're the ones who oppose bigotry.
No, you can't.
That's gone. The whole, man, those GOP people are a bunch of Hitlers is over. It's over. Your side is chanting anti-Semitic stuff proudly at all of these protests. They're driving Jewish students off of these elite campuses to the point now they're going to go to, they're going to go to, Columbia's going to go to hybrid classes again. They're going to go to a mix of online classes and in-person classes.
I thought it was all off-campus classes.
Is it all going to be?
Yeah, that's what I saw. I read the headline yesterday.
That was what they were trying to decide.
Yeah.
All right. So that the story came down today. I guess that one was still outdated. They said hybrid classes as late as this afternoon.
Unless they changed it, because this morning when I woke up, it was the classes are done on campus.
Well, and I don't know how you could, because I thought to myself, well, if you're going to have any in-person classes, how do you expect Jewish students to go there and feel safe? How could you logically expect that they are going to compromise their own safety and show up? Why would you do that? Why would you even think that they would? Why would you expect them to?
Okay, here's the update from an hour ago. All right.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Columbia University, the epicenter of pro-Palestinian pro-terrorist protest. CNN.
Yeah.
Says all classes at its main campus will be hybrid, technology permitting, until the spring semester ends. The last day of classes is April 29th.
How do you expect any of them to show up for on-site classes?
I guess you can choose not to be there, and it's okay.
Okay, maybe it's choice. Okay,
yeah.
that would make sense. Well,
at Columbia's main campus, classes were already virtual on Monday.
Yeah,
due to security concerns. So that's what I'd seen yesterday. I think it was, and so.
And if it's choice, that's a good thing. In other words, you're not forcing the students to be there, and you shouldn't. And imagine the money poured in to these campuses. I mean, imagine the money poured into these campuses, and how many of these students are about to graduate? How many of these students are about to be done? They're in the last weeks, and now you have all of this chaos. And sorry. It's not safe. It isn't safe for Jewish students on these elite campuses. It just isn't. You can't make the case that it is. You can't make the case this is being overblown.
And you see,
you can't.
You see now Yale, NYU, Berkeley. It's starting to spread now.
Yeah.
Across the country.
Right.
The hatred, the pro-terrorist mindset that exists out there. It's very tough, I think, for just people to comprehend it, because it's so incredibly hateful. And I like what you said, when you said the Democratic Party can no longer look anywhere else and say anybody else is a racist or a bigot.
Yeah, or a Nazi.
Or
especially.
Yeah, or a Nazi or Hitler, whatever, because they've made it so clear. And you think about it, that the Democrats would always say that Trump is a racist. Well, he doesn't say it direct, but it's by code.
Yeah.
And you see the things that Biden has done and said about Israel.
Right.
It's absolutely anti-Semitic, the stuff that he has said before. Saying the ceasefire is anti-Semitic. Saying that Israel was involved in indiscriminate bombing, which they were not.
Right.
Not coming out strongly. Remember, it was the generals that came out and said, no, there is no genocide that's coming from the Israelis whatsoever. Biden's trying to play both sides of it, but by playing both sides, you're pro-terrorist. Yeah. There is no, you said it day one, there is no other side to this. The only sides are you stand with a modern Western democracy, or you stand with terrorists.
You can't be neutral on this at all.
And so when you see where this is. So I like what you said, because we've talked for years about, and I think we were some of the first to talk about it, that identity politics is racism.
Yeah.
That when you judge, that they judge people by groups and not individuals. And we've been talking about this, I know, since we've been together. So it's well over 20 years. I know that when I was a loner talk show host, not personal life, that I was talking about it way back. You and I recognized it way back when conservative blacks were being told that you're an Uncle Tom, you're
Right.
not genuinely black, and that goes all the way back to the late 80s, early 90s when that came out. So it's it's 35 years that this type of reprehensible bigotry and racism has come directly from the Democratic Party, and it keeps getting stronger and stronger. And now we're to the point where Biden is acknowledging he needs the pro-Hamas terrorist vote in order to win the election. And they always made the case, Trump believes he needs the racists in order to get it. Well, where's Trump a racist? Well, Charlottesville. We saw what Charlottesville said. We saw what he said in Charlottesville.
Right.
He denounced denounced the racist. He denounced that.
Right.
He was talking about the people that believe on both sides of the issue that Confederate monuments and statues, which help tell the history of the United States, should be able to stay, that there are people on goodwill on both of those sides. He was not defending it. They had to make that up.
Right.
But with Biden, it's just unbelievable. I mean, the racism that exists that is now mainstream, the anti-Semitism, racism, and anti-Semitism, we remember, we go back to The View where Whoopi had to be taught about the racism, versus the Jewish people in this country. She seemed to be completely clueless on it. But it's just to the point now, you shake your head, you go, my God, this is what the Democratic Party has become. I know there are Democrats that don't agree with it, but on the federal level, as we have seen it in Congress right now, I got the cut from AOC.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you an example from the, let me see if I still have it right here. Okay, here it is. This is AOC followed by Biden. You ready?
All right.
Here we go.
As we once again witness the leadership of those peaceful student-led protests on campuses like Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, and many others.
Representative Ocasio-Cortez in New York, I learned a long time ago, listen to that lady.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Seals the deal. We're on board.
Yeah. The selling of anti-Semitism, pro-terrorism.
And it goes for the media coverage. We've gone after the liberal media activists in newsrooms for a long time, and this is no different. If you cover this in any other way, or you decide not to cover it, Newsbusters points out quite a bit how the mainstream media just avoids stories altogether, That in fact, on the cannibal story, they just walked right around it. Man, you had to drive around the block to go around that one. And the way that it's covered, the way it's talked about, late night comedians, they're laughable to begin with, and not in the good way, not in the way that they're supposed to be. You can't make these jokes, or the people on the right are a bunch of Hitlers. Doesn't fly anymore. Your side is the one that is going after Jewish students on campuses, that is calling for the annihilation of Jews, calling for the annihilation of Israel, and supporting Hamas openly. You own that. If you are going to defend your party, you're defending that radical behavior, and there is no blurred line here.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Cold weather takes a toll on trucks. As warmer weather rolls in, it's time to assess the impact winter has had on your vehicle before you find yourself stranded roadside this spring. If you're experiencing sluggish cranking, start your spring maintenance routine by having your electrical system tested by a professional technician. Your batteries, alternator, and starter have been working overtime to keep up with cold starts and thick oil during winter. Continuing to crank a vehicle with low voltage will lead to more damage and downtime later on. Big rigs are big investments. Take care of yours now to help avoid downtime later and keep rolling through to next winter.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just reading just some of the different headlines here. The Ivy League's anti-Israel protest meltdown. University safe space is now reserved for terrorist supporters.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
The New Guinea Prime Minister angrily slams Joe Biden over cannibal claim. I just happened to see that headline. Poll. Nearly half of Gen Z voters are sympathetic towards Hamas.
There you go.
So this isn't the whole point is it's not fringe.
Nope.
It's not fringe anymore. It's not just, well, a couple of people. I mean, this is the indoctrination that we have seen in the schools because it comes from nowhere else.
Mm-hmm.
This has to come from the schools or their parents.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or the political party that they're in, because this does not come. You know, we live in 2024, and most of us go around and say, "Live and let live," you know, and most of us look and go, "Come on, bigotry over skin color, bigotry over modern day established religions that have no hatred in them at all." And, you know, to be an anti-Semite, you really have to make stuff up.
But to be pro-terrorist, you got to go out of your way.
Yeah.
Because I have to ask any of these radicals the question, you know, you're donning the attire. Are you willing to fight the fight? How far are you willing to go for what you believe? Are you willing to fight? Are you willing to do what terrorists do? Is that what you're willing to do? You willing to do what Hamas did on October 7th?
If you're pro-Hamas, and we know because we went through the chants yesterday that you hear, which is pro-terrorist. If you're pro-terrorist, well, look at this. Should the Justice Department be concerned about people that are screaming that they're pro-terrorist if they had FBI agents in school parking lots taking down parents' license plate numbers because their parents were objecting to the radical transgender movement and racism being taught in schools?
Right.
Look, this is the standard that Democrats set.
Well, you know, Barry Weiss wrote it. You and I have mentioned it before. If these protests were anti-black student protests, would the Justice Department have moved in already?
Yes.
And why haven't they? Where are they? Well, we agree. You forget about the lie about Charlottesville. That too is way over. It was over from the beginning for us, all of us that were paying attention. But all of the slate is cleaned by the hatred in the hearts that exist on the left. Everything they've been going after the right for. They're a bunch of Nazis. Look at these Nazis. Look at these. Yeah. Look in the mirror. Look at your own party. Look at the radical left right now. Look at the nearly half of Gen Zers who have sympathy for Hamas, terrorists. Sorry, those days of calling the right a bunch of bigots and Nazis are done.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio, from the Uniden America Studios.
Turn Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. As we talk about the anti-Semitic pro-terrorist protest at Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, NYU now. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Mike in Poughkeepsie, New York. Mike, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi.
Hi, guys. Thank you for your passion on such a deep issue. Really appreciate it. And the fact that you go to the heart issues. Eric mentioned the problem of the evil in the heart. The heart of the problem is the problem of the heart, and I'm glad you guys are bringing that to the fore. The reason I called was when they set up hybrid or online classes, they're forcing the students through intimidation and fear of their own safety to choose to give up their constitutional right to assembly anywhere because they're being forced away from the class. They can't go to a lab they might need to get to or whatever, but they're giving up a constitutional right in fear of their own safety. And the school won't back them, and the law won't back them.
I'm going to assume that the school's going to say we're doing it for the safety of the students and not to deny them the their free assembly rights. But now again, it all depends. I don't know the minutia of what's going on there. By allowing these protests to continue without clamping down on them, you may have a totally solid point there, Mike. But I tell you where it is, I don't think even debatable, and it's that one professor at Columbia who is he's pro-Israel, mm-hmm. and his card, he's got the card you had to scan to get into the protest, and they didn't allow him. They however you delist the card or delist the card or whatever, so he couldn't get in.
You deactivate
right.
the barcode
right.
or whatever.
Right. They deactivated that card, and so he couldn't get in. And so Columbia did it. So you can make that case that is denying his right to free assembly. So yeah.
I'm not saying they're trying to do this to the students. I think it's an unintended consequence. But by allowing them the choice of online schooling, they are inadvertently having to give up their right to free assembly.
Right, but free assembly is when you go to protest. Free assembly is not going to school. Free assembly would be, I'm going to protest something politically, and the government is denying me from doing that. They're not giving me a permit to do it. Going to class is going to class. It's not political protest.
Well, here's a question that I don't know that I haven't heard anywhere where it is the case, where I guess any student is complaining about it. But what if the Jewish students said, "Look, we want to get together and counter protest"?
No, you're right.
What does the school do then? By the way, I wouldn't pretend to know the answers. I'll tell you right now. You make sure you have a lot of security on that campus to make sure that those students are protected. We know who's being targeted. We haven't heard anything of the other way around where any Jewish students have targeted any of these pro-Hamas protesters. But you look at the situation where, if you're a student and you pay, somebody's paying, whether you're paying it, it's a college loan that eventually Joe Biden will pay, apparently, or somebody else, a scholarship. Imagine you're in your last weeks as a student. You're almost there. You're almost done, and this thing comes down. The DOJ is nowhere to be seen in this, and we can't figure out why.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mike, by not cracking down on what's going on campus, I could say that the school is possibly in a civil lawsuit in breach of your contract, because in order to go to school, they have an obligation to keep you safe. And if people are breaking the law on campus, that's going to affect you.
Right. They
have a responsibility and obligation to stop those protests. And so if you're not getting the education you want because the management of the school, the president or whatever, is saying, oh, no, let's keep this going, let's keep this going, let's keep this going. And, okay, police are getting too tough. We need to have the protest here. protests that shut down the school are not protests at that point.
Right.
And if they're doing it because the Jewish students they believe
Thanks,
are
Mike.
in danger and they allow it to continue, I can see a civil lawsuit coming for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch that.
But yeah, it all goes to the heart.
Yeah.
It all goes, Eric and I, for the longest time, as talk show hosts for decades now, decades upon decades upon decades upon decades, we always found it fascinating that any position that we would take was automatically racist, even though the opposition could not explain why we were racist. And one day we just sat back and went, oh, the light went off. We understand why they do that. Because they practice identity politics. They judge people by groups. Mm-hmm. And we tend to believe, I think, that the way that we think is the way that others think.
Right.
And that's not the case.
Right.
Which is why we started off the show saying one of the reasons you can't debate the left in this country is because take a look at the feminists who crumbled under the radical transgender movement. For over a century they fought. Couple of centuries they fought for equal rights. Well, they got things like Title IX, and then the feminist movement just crumbled and said, no, men wish to become women if they think they're women, and so we're going to have to agree with that. So man gets to define a woman. Think about this. I saw this yesterday. There's some of the transgender cases that are going to be going before the Supreme Court, and exactly what we said. How can Justice Jackson sit and judge anything on the transgender movement or anything on women's rights when she can't define what a woman is?
Right.
You can't. And we have seen what has happened there and how feminism just crumbled and said the man gets to dictate the definition of a woman and the man gets to play against women and take away opportunities from women in sports. And they all crumbled. Oh, by the way, thanks for Angel Reese from LSU, who now was in the NBA. Again, they won the national championship, and she came out and said, no, you need to protect women. Well, you need to protect yourself from that idiot coach of yours, Don Staley, who said, "Oh no, I'm for all men, playing against women." I mean, she just the coach just completely just became a coward in that moment, and I'm glad that Angel Reese stood up and said no. But then the same thing as we talked about, feminist for Hamas, feminist for gays for Hamas. I mean, this is you can't even. You can't take any type of logic in it except there's some type of emotional rage, uncontrollable rage that exists in these people. Why? I can't tell you. It might be different for each individual. But as you said, it goes to the heart, Eric, as the caller brought up. And I think you're right. It goes to the heart. These are hateful, evil hearts that exist in these people.
And they're openly, here's the thing. We don't have to go out of our way, selectively edit things or make up a lie about what these individuals are saying. It's in the news everywhere. Well, for the news groups that are covering it, but it's everywhere. You can find it easily. The Charlottesville lie was just that, and it had to be organized within the liberal media, within the Democratic Party. Chris Wallace did it on the debate stage. And all of these things, the way that they played out, it required, the lie always requires, if it's going to be effective, a large group of individuals, if it's going to be effective politically, a large group of individuals to keep it alive. The truth is always alive. It's always there. It's whether or not you choose to look at it. It's whether or not it's been uncovered and exposed. The truth remains. The Charlottesville lie required over and over again people to tell it and carry it on. It was an effort. Here, nobody has to lie about what these radicals are doing. It's everywhere. You can find it for yourself. If you choose to ignore it, then you choose to side with radicals.
And if you've been a long-time listener to this show, we had said a long time ago, I can't tell you when, but has to be well over 10, 15 years ago. I know it was the mindset when we first came together, and even before that, when we didn't work together, it was our opinion of identity politics, which we said goes back to the modern identity politics movement, I believe goes back to the late 80s, early 90s, when black conservative talk show hosts came out, and also I got mind blank here, Justice Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
When he ran, and you saw the bigotry, you saw it at that point, and I think that's where the modern identity politics movement began in this country, and it's judging people by groups and not individuals, and that's only going to lead to one thing, and that's where we see it today: the hatred inside the Democratic Party, the race baiting inside the Democratic Party. To give you a perfect example, Coleman Hughes on The View talking about we need to be colorblind as America, and Democrats are pushing back. No, you can't be colorblind. Well, of course you can be.
Yeah, you can.
Of course you can be. Of course you can sit there, and we should be, even if you don't believe if you believe it's a tough thing to do, that should be your goal. Well, the goal should be to be colorblind and say, oh, yeah, what do you mean you're colorblind? You see the person's color of their skin. Yeah, I see the color of their eyes, too. It doesn't matter. Of course, I can see different colors.
Again, they're debating like children, and this is in recent years they started doing this. What? They said they don't see their color. Yeah, you're a moron, and by the way, you're clueless and you're weak in your debate when you go that direction. You sound like a 13-year-old trying to have an adult debate.
Well, they do that because they wish to avoid the actual debate.
They're doing everything they do is to avoid the actual debate. Yeah, exactly. This is where they are. They can't debate anything.
And I do think that conservatives in the Republican Party, we've stated this for the longest time, ought to be on the attack. Conservatives should never be on the defensive when they're called racist, ever.
Right.
They should attack. And what I mean is rhetorically. I don't mean physically, just to make sure. They need to attack on that debate because it is clear, and everyone knows, every Democrat knows. This was discussed when Tim Ryan ran against Nancy Pelosi. We got to stop the identity politics. It's brought up by Roy Teixeira and some of the other Democrat consultants that are looking at the Democratic Party right now and saying, you got to drop the identity politics. You have to stop judging people by groups and not individuals. We know that's what racism is. And it's so blunt and crystal clear inside the Democratic Party. And eventually you have to say, well, why has it lasted for 30 years?
Right.
Hate in the heart.
Yep.
Jealousy.
Yep.
Envy. A sense of race, of true racism, of the myth of the superiority of whatever race you happen to be.
Well,
it's evil, it's wrong, it's stupid.
Look at the comments coming out from these radical protesters, these pro-Hamas protesters. Look at the comments coming out, and it's being widely reported, the comments where they're shouting at Jewish students. That's pure hatred.
Yeah, pure hatred. Pure hatred.
Pure hatred. Can you imagine being an employer and then you see one of these people, all of a sudden they show up, after they graduate college, they show up at your doorstep for a job? You can go straight to hell.
Well, I will say this. Apparently, the Ivy League schools are not doing a great job teaching DEI to these protesters.
No, they're not.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. As always, we appreciate it. Earth Day yesterday, and
yeah, okay.
Some polling out.
You know, I
on the-
celebrated by spending the entire day on Earth.
Yeah, same with me. Yeah. I decided not to leave the planet.
Yeah.
Uh,
Normally, there are times when, at least figuratively, I'd like to leave the planet.
Well, if Biden wins, I plan to leave the planet.
We're going to go bigger.
Right.
We're going to go bigger than Barbara Streisand.
Right.
We're leaving the entire planet.
Since I'm leaving the planet if Biden is elected, I care more about this country than you do. Because you're only willing to leave the country.
That's right.
I'm willing to leave the planet.
That's right. So, there. Do we get a prize when we care more? I don't know. I don't know how any of this works.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We had a busy day yesterday, so we just didn't get a chance to play it, and it's something that we always play on Earth Day, and this goes back, 2008, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
When we first saw this one. And I like the beginning of it because remember the SNL skit, It's Pat, which, by the way, became a movie.
Yeah, it did.
And she always used to... That's how this thing starts out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but here we go. If you're a longtime listener, you remember this.
Yeah.
Because we try to play it once a year. And this is Earth First, Mourning the Loss of a Tree. All right, here we go. There it is.
Deep in the woods of North Carolina, an extremist eco-group called Earth First bewails the violation of American nature.
Earth First.
I want to mourn the loss of all the old growth trees I've seen, and tell them that we love them and that we don't want them to die, that there are some people here who do care. So I want you to know that, trees, that we care.
I think we are deeply hurting in America. I think we are deeply craving answers. I think that we've lost our identity as we have evolved into technology and into industrialized society. Bring me to this cathedral. Bring me to those guys. Bring me to this rock that has the most incredible life.
Okay, just want to stop there so you remember that point.
Yeah. Right.
Bring me to this rock that has this incredible life. All right, now we're going to play this. Just want to make sure that we highlight that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll come back to it here momentarily. Let's finish with this little video.
That makes me feel alive.
I've looked at clear cuts and burnt forest, and I've felt outraged, but I didn't scream and I didn't cry. And I need to.
It's always pleasant. By the way, they sound like a fun hang.
What I can't find can't find it on YouTube anymore is where somebody did that video and in the background Beavis and Butthead were in the trees watching. Exactly, that's what it was. Yeah, that's exactly.
Whoa.
Now,
Yeah.
I was a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
I got the Conservation of Natural Resources merit badge. The one falsehood that's always pushed is that, conservatives don't care about the environment, and that's completely false.
Yeah.
Of course we do.
Mm-hmm.
What takes us to the next level, for example, the insanity portion of this is look at this rock that has the most amazing life. This is the thing that we talk about. This is where, and you see this extrapolated out. The radical transgender movement.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have compassion. No, I have compassion. No, you're asking questions about how somebody could be transgender, and that's transphobic. How can asking questions to try to understand where you're coming from be transphobic? Because if you even ask questions, they will commit suicide. So I can't ask questions because somebody might commit suicide when you're making the claim that a biological man can be a biological woman because a biological man says so, and a biological man must be able to play sports against a biological woman, or that biological man will commit suicide? Yes! Well, sorry, it doesn't work that way in life.
No.
Otherwise, nobody will tell the truth ever, and that's what we're looking for. Nobody ever tell the truth, but that's where you get. That's where you jump into the way beyond the ozone layer when you start saying that a rock has a life, and that's the thing that that's the should I say the excesses of liberalism. When they can't just stick to something that people could even remotely accept. They have to go off the deep end, and that's what we're seeing today on a variety of different topics.
Yeah, it's look, those young ladies you just heard, who, well, they're not so young anymore. They're 16 years older, at least. I don't know. We've been playing the audio since 2008. I don't know how far back that actual audio goes.
Oh, I wonder. They're older now. I wonder if any of them are single.
You can hope. So, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Just to change the topic for a second, because I mentioned it to you. I put when my father's birthday was last week, and I put a picture of myself and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on Twitter, and somebody writes in. God, it's just so funny. I'm glad to see that you get along with your father, because most gay men don't get along with their father.
By the way, that's bigoted.
I look at going, oh, so that makes me gay? Which,
right.
And because
McNamara, he gets along with his dad and whatnot. Is that how the bigots, is that the road they go down now to
I don't know.
make their case?
I don't know, but I was a couple of thoughts. First off, the bigotry there, because they're trying to make it that there's basically that's binary. Either you're straight or you're gay. Well, understand, you can be like me, straight, but all women reject you.
Well,
understand that you can be that way too. That there are various degrees of it, and so I'm on the straight, but all women reject me. That's where I am.
Yeah.
Just so.
All right. Well, okay.
But the fact is, it's like trolling. It's like you've been doing. This is the most humorous part of it, and when you do this business for as long as we do it, nothing really gets to you.
No.
Nothing really. We can get passionate on the air and things like this, but nobody insulting you can really get to you.
No.
Your skin becomes too thick. And that's where I find the laughter of this guy. All right. It's a nice moment between Gary and his father.
I finally got him. He posted a picture with his dad.
All right. This is the moment I'm going to accuse him of being gay. I have no evidence of that. But I'm going to accuse him.
Well, he really thought he was going in for the kill.
I know.
Too.
It's like, well, now I'm hurt. Well,
right. Like, man.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Not that there's anything wrong with social media ignorance.
Oh, the Seinfeld episode. But
yeah.
I found that interesting, and I forgot to bring it up last week when it happened, but it just popped into my mind now. It's just, so funny how trolls think they can get you, and it's like, I've been doing talk radio for 35 years. Do you understand that I've been called every name in the book and every accusation thrown my way without any evidence whatsoever, and all of a sudden you decide, 35 years in the business, let's accuse him of being gay and do it with his him celebrating his father's 98th birthday. It's like,
yeah.
There is some bizarre humor to all of that.
Yeah.
We can get him now.
Yeah, we got him going in for the kill now. Watch what I'm going to type, guys. Wow, did you use both thumbs for that one? You got to put more into it.
Well,
Come on.
maybe they took it out of context when I said, yeah, Eric and I really get along.
Maybe. I don't know. What do I know? It's none of my business. I don't care.
You're staying out of it. You want nothing to do with my personal life.
Or I'm fully in it. I don't care. It's just...
Well, you better tell your wife.
my thought is, yeah, okay. I'm not sure she cares. Quite frankly. Whatever. We're both really tired. I just read a story the other day on biohacking. This man is, and by the way, it all comes from social media. Can the media stop doing an entire story on one person's social media page, and they're not even a celebrity? This guy's online, and he's biohacking. He's 62. He works out 9 hours a day. He takes 300 supplements a day. He eats only broccoli and air, and then and apparently you can eat air, and he's got the heart of a 38-year-old. I thought, it's totally not worth it. Sorry. I'm not putting that much. And I told my dad, too. I said, Dad, not sure if you heard those at Dad's over the weekend. Not sure if you heard about this biohacking thing. He said, yeah, kind of. That's people trying to, roll back the clock. I said, yeah. I said, I don't want to roll back the clock. I don't want to have the energy of a 38-year-old. There's too much crap in the world. I like the low energy where I am now.
So that's called biohacking.
Biohacking, that's what they call it. Basically, taking a boatload of supplements and exercising all day. And it's funny because the guy comes, he comments, he goes, I try not to get too upset if I miss a day of exercising. I'm like, really? What about if you miss 2? Or, hold on, what if you miss 3?
Well, but I try to work out all the time, but probably after 3 days of working out, I have to take a rest day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you get into your 60s, you get into your 40s. It's like, I can't exercise every day. I run a marathon every day. Well, you're going to have a nice knee replacement by the time you get to 55.
Right. Yeah, it's like, I'm too tired. I'm too tired for any of it.
Biohacking. I thought you were going to say that that it's something that's going on where somebody takes, changes your bio so you become somebody else. But I think this is even worse. Where how many supplements? What in the world is he taking if he's taking 100 supplement pills?
Well, no wonder he's only eating broccoli, because you take that many supplements, you're full. It was over 200 a day. I rounded up to 300 for the joke. It's over 200 a day is what he's taking. I don't call that biohacking. I call that a little bit desperate.
You really can't enjoy life on that diet, can you?
Well, no.
Is there obsessive compulsive disorder there?
Yeah. It's desperation. You know, if you're 62, how about you just be 62? You should exercise. You should try and eat healthy. You should also live. You should also enjoy things.
Yeah.
You know, it's life. Because that was my question. He goes, well, I try not to get, too obsessed with it. If I miss a day of exercising, if I miss my morning routine or whatever, then, I don't get to it. Yeah, but what if you miss 2 or maybe 3 or a whole week?
Yeah, one of the things I found out as I got older is the fact that you have to exercise less. Because you get in a certain routine, and as you get older, you realize your body can't handle that, and you really don't need it.
Do what the day allows. Do what the day calls for. Yeah. And don't obsess over it.
Well, if you ride the bicycle, I rode the bike the other day 8 miles. Is it better if I do 30, or is 8 miles enough for somebody in their 60s?
Well, as a runner, I've often said, and I have a friend. She's from Oklahoma. We worked together in radio years ago. She moved out to L.A. years ago. She loves it. Well, as far as I know, I haven't talked to her in a couple of years, but she still lives out there in L.A. Got a great job. And she runs marathons all the time. I couldn't do that. It's a beat down on your frame, on your skeleton. I mean, it just is. And that was the thing. Everybody, hey, go run. Hey, why don't you? No, I like running alone. That's another thing. A New York City marathon? No.
I don't want to deal with people.
I don't. You want me to go running in a crowd? No.
Here's a question. How much does it cost to be on 200 plus supplements a day?
Oh, yeah. No, that's. Oh, no. He came up with it. I think it was the entire routine was like $300 a month. Yeah.
Where's he getting his supplements from?
I don't know.
I would check the purity of those supplements.
Well, I would check to see if that's, remember a few years ago, they went back and went through them and said, well, a lot of them that are on the shelf at these stores don't have anything close to what they even claim they have because they're not regulated.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, he said about $300 a month is what he said. Wow. Yeah.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Uncompensated detention at docks frustrates drivers of all stripes. If you're an owner-operator, you have at least some control over the matter. Make the subject a standard part of your rate and/or contract negotiations on the front end. You can use your own numbers to calculate an hourly rate to compensate for lost income opportunity, as well as fixed costs, which don't stop when the truck stops. Those two elements of a fair detention rate were deemed appropriate by most of Overdrive's audience almost a decade ago. We've used income, fixed costs, and miles average of our owner-operator business services from ATBS's clients to compute an average $64 an hour detention rate then. And 10 years later, the figure is $83 an hour. Use your own numbers to calculate your rate. A simple conversation with any broker or shipper, or your carrier if you're leased, about what you're putting in the rate might yield results you don't expect. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Friday Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And you said another guy, what's it called?
Biohacking.
Biohacking. Another guy spending $2 million a year for supplements.
Yeah, the first guy I was talking about total spends $30,000 a year, but that also includes skincare product. But there's another guy, over $2 million a year he's spending
to be young.
Yeah. I mean, if you got it,
if you're getting plastic surgery and Botox and all that stuff, I mean, that's
my thought would be, yeah. I mean, because he's not doing anything surgical. So, what are you spending $2 million? You know what? I can help you live longer, and I'll do it for $1 million a year. Let's talk.
Eat less, exercise more, right?
I'm not giving away my secret.
Okay.
Get our Red Eye Radio app in your app store. Then listen at your convenience. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Just looking here. I was looking at some videos. Some of the protesters actually going to the streets in New York. Then looking at just various headlines. NYPD arrests numerous anti-Israeli protesters on NYU's campus following the university's request. Ex-CNN anchor bringing her sons to Israel, where she says they will be safer than in New York City. Campbell Brown, I'm on my way to Israel where my two sons will be safer and feel more welcome than they would be today on the Upper West Side. Wow. You move down to Rabbi. Columbia University proves we need real enforcement by White House against anarchy. NYU protesters, by the way, I'm going to say anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorism protesters form a human chain as the NYPD moves in. Wow. And what was the other story I was looking at? Oh, Generation Z.
Yeah, nearly half.
Nearly half of Gen Z voters are sympathetic towards Hamas. And 1/3 do not believe Israel has a right to exist, from a recent Summit.org RMG research survey. The survey conducted on the first day of Passover showcased the startling difference between the sentiments of all voters and Gen Z voters, those born between 1997 and 2012.
Wow.
So if you're born in 1997, then you're done with college at this point. Most of you are done with college at that point. But over half. Now, 2012, that would make you just, 14 years old, 13 or 14. So I don't know. I don't know what the breakdown is. Probably college-age students is what you'd want to go for. The survey asked respondents, do you believe that Israel's wealth and military power make its campaign against Hamas unjust? While most voters across the board, 58%, believe that Israel's campaign is just, compared to 21% who believe it's unjust, only 42% of voters aged 18 to 24 believe Israel's campaign against Hamas is just. Wow. A plurality of voters, 18 to 24, believe Israel's campaign against Hamas is unjust, while most voters across the board, including Gen Z voters, agree with the U.S. government classifying Hamas as a terrorist group. There is a 20% decrease among Gen Z voters 61% to 81% of overall voters. Furthermore, a third of Gen Z voters believe Israel does not have the right to exist as a nation. That's coming directly from the colleges.
Yeah,
and maybe radical high schools.
It is.
Because they list Gen Z as again 97 to 2012, so they're not saying that they included people that in the survey that were 14, 15 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So you're talking about the rot in the colleges today, and the rot is coming. Not the highlight right now is in the elite institutions of this country. Well, the perceived elite institutions in this country.
Yeah. Right.
When Nate Silver came out yesterday and wrote that tweet, and he's a Democrat, when he came out and said, you're wasting your money going to an elite college. You're throwing it down the toilet, basically.
Right.
You don't get any better education. In fact, all you do is get brainwashed.
Yep.
You're paying extra money to become a bigot.
Yep.
When you go to these colleges.
Well, and, again, it is a learned behavior, but it is a behavior. I guess my question would be, why would that behavior change? Why would that sentiment, what is there that tells us that this sentiment would ever change with these individuals? You get older, you learn things, and your heart can change. But the way this is going, it seems to be a growing sentiment, either that or the number of people that have always believed it are just coming to the surface. They're coming out. Imagine these are respondents to a survey in this case. Some of them, I guess, may be showing up at protests. But respondents, you're saying on a survey, you're promoting your bigotry. That's so unbelievable. I just can't wrap my brain around that kind of mindset. And nearly half of Gen Zers are part of this category. The question is, what about the ones that aren't saying anything? How big of a problem is this?
Well, you see that Biden needs the pro-terrorist vote.
Yeah.
He believes he needs the pro-terrorist vote.
Yep.
In order to win re-election. That he cannot find enough Democrats and independents to vote. This is what the campaign believes.
Yep.
That they've got to get the terrorist vote in order to win. And by the way, when you hear that, for example, in Michigan, president's problem is Dearborn. Well, what you're talking about is what? Pro-terrorist, the pro-terrorist mindset.
Yeah.
That exists.
Right.
And that seems, that's commonplace when people talk about that, but they don't get into the specifics. What are you talking about when you mean? Well, we don't need to support Israel as much. Okay, what does that mean? When you get down to it, it's pro-Hamas. It's pro-genocide of Jews.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Right.
Reading here from the New York Post, and you put this into my brain when you said what about the people that say nothing? How bad is it? Because there's going to be a certain number of people that aren't going to tell you that they're pro-terrorist.
Right.
And they write here, this is the editorial page, we had our doubts that the Columbia president would stick to her guns after calling in the New York PD to roust the, quote, pro-Palestine occupiers last week, but we didn't expect her to turn around and start privileging the students or the protesters over the rest of the Columbia community. Since she needs to go. And that can be only the start in rooting out the anti-Semitic radicalism infesting the school. Note that the protesters have only grown worse. Quote, protesters have grown worse these last few days. They are now openly pro-Hamas, telling campus Jews that they'll be next. Their encampment is larger, too, yet the school's leaders are not just tolerating a new settlement by the same crowd, but privileging the protesters over all the other students by going all remote, penalizing kids whose tuition is supposed to pay for in-person education, exactly what we said.
Right.
And actively securing the campus from those who want to voice an opposing view on the grounds that it can't protect law and rule-abiding opponents of the Jew haters from the goons. Israel-born business school assistant professor Shai Devidai said his key card was deactivated Monday when he sought to enter the school's Morningside Heights Central Quad, and that administrators told him they banned him because they can't ensure his safety. Huh? As a member of the Columbia community, he has every right to enter the core campus and speak freely. Yet the school is instead enforcing the protesters' heckler's veto, allowing their threat of force to prevent a legitimate counter-protest. And that's when we said, we talked to that gentleman earlier when we were making that point, that that's where the freedom of assembly argument you could make.
Right.
So there you go. You just, it's insane.
Well, and this is not, again, there is no promise of this going away, changing direction. In fact, it seems to be going in the other direction. This is a growing sentiment or a growing number of people that are willing to reveal the hatred in their hearts. Well, it's one or the other. I tend to believe if you've got this kind of hatred in your heart, you probably always have. We talk about learned behaviors. But learned behaviors, there are certain things you can tell young people. You could say to young people, and they'll look at you weird, and say, well, wait a minute. So I wonder what's going on in the homes of these individuals. Because, campuses can indoctrinate fully. We've seen it. They're doing it. They have been doing it for a long, long time. And I don't know, it's hard to quantify how many of these kids take it on as a part of indoctrination. But I have to believe that there's something going on at home, something at home that has instilled that kind of hatred into your heart, or at least allowed that hatred to get into your heart.
There's been a couple of articles recently that we have read on the air about the far left and the anger that exists there, the anger and the where does it come from? The anger and depression. And I really look at it, and I forgot who said it the other day, that they were talking about, just about going through life and how grateful they are for everything, how grateful they were for their parents, the fact that they have freedom. I really think that that's a part of it. I think that if you're grateful, for example, that you're healthy, if you're grateful that you live in a free society and have opportunities that you go after, when you're grateful for those basic things, you're a happy person. Because you're not expecting somebody to give you something when you're told you're a victim from day one.
Yeah.
No wonder you end up as a miserable adult.
Yep.
No wonder you're angry at everything. No wonder you're lashing out. Look, I can be passionate, and so can you, about the issues out there, and we can get angry. But the fact is, we're extremely grateful and appreciative for everything that we have in our life, for the opportunities that we have, the fact that we live in the United States, the fact that you and I get to practice, freedom of speech each and every day. On the radio, we get to discuss the issues. There's just so much I'm grateful for, but none of it is based on the fact that somebody gave me something.
Right.
If somebody helped me, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think the left, even if you're given something, if you're giving something your entire life, then you have no value of what you've been given.
Right. If you believe it
Right.
just simply exists because you exist.
Right. How can you be grateful?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be happening.
There's no way to appreciate it
because I'm a
fully.
victim. You're an oppressor. You're just paying me what you owe me.
Right.
Because I'm a victim and I'm the good person. You're the bad person. I really think that's part of what leads to the horrible attitudes that these people have and why you really can't relate to them at all. How everything in their life is negative.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up on the top of the hour, the Trump trial and what Jonathan Turley has to say. As I see after the first day, he's just going, "This is unbelievable," and it really is.
Right.
The judge should have thrown this out. We've stated this for the longest time. There is no case here.
No, there isn't.
There is no law that even applies to what's going on. It really is incredible what's going on. It's really just mind-boggling how lawfare has been used. And my question is, how do you stop it? How do you stop the rot of rogue prosecutors and judges?
By them helping Trump get reelected? Maybe.
Okay.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
How are you? Here we are, middle of the night. Yeah. What's up? Well, the Trump brag case, as we'll call it, and a lot of people doing polls that show that 30 to 35% believe the president did something illegal. In the hush money case, number one, I would say, okay, explain what, and they wouldn't be able to, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Turley was asked that yesterday when he was on Fox News. That and more is what he discussed, and I think the first comment he makes is pretty solid as to why you might find 30% or more people that believe the president did something illegal, the former president did something illegal in the hush money case. Here we go.
Well, that's not unexpected. I think if you poll people and ask if Trump was responsible for the bubonic plague, you'd end up with the same 35%. I mean, we have these hard numbers on either end of the poll when it comes to Trump. They don't move, no matter what the subject is. What is clear is, in this case, Trump is right. I mean, this is an embarrassment. I mean, the fact that we are actually talking about this case being presented in a New York courtroom leaves me in utter disbelief. I mean, the arguments today did, in fact, capture all the problems here. You know, you had this misdemeanor under state law that had run out. This is going back to related to the 2016 election. and they zapped it back into life by alleging that there was a campaign finance violation under the federal laws that doesn't exist. The Department of Justice doesn't view it this way. But on top of that, you've got these tough factual issues that were laid out well by the Trump team, saying someone else designated this as a legal expense, and he was actually paid far in excess of this because of this was a legal account. But also keep in mind, this is what Hillary Clinton's people did. You know, remember when they funded the Steele dossier, which they denied to reporters, they put it as a legal expense, and then they fought the eventual fine that they received from the federal government, saying, but it was a legal expense. But now you've got some of the same Democrats supporting this bizarre theory.
Yeah. So in terms of Democrats, too, Trump insists that there's coordination between Bragg's office and Washington. Bragg's office says, no, there's no coordination. Yet, what do we see at trial today? The prosecution being led in part by Matthew Colangelo, who was the former Associate Attorney General of the United States, who gave up that plum position to go back and become a state prosecutor. Does that seem a little unusual?
Well, you can only imagine what Trump was thinking. This is like playing poker with someone with their cards facing outward. I mean, the first person they bring up is the very guy that they got from the Biden Justice Department who's leading this effort. And that only reaffirms and supports this narrative, right, that this is all coordinated. It's a mystery to me why they would do that, except there is a chilling reality here. It doesn't matter. It's New York. That is, if the fact is that most people in most courts would be like, whoa, let's not start with the former Biden justice attorney to make this argument. But in New York, it doesn't matter because not much else matters except the name of the defendant on the caption, Donald Trump.
You know, it's remarkable as we continue to cover this, Jonathan, the optics of President Biden out there on the campaign trail, 3 stops in Pennsylvania on Friday last week alone, and the former president sitting in a courtroom, and he lamented that very point earlier on missing campaigning. Listen.
This is what took me off and takes me off the campaign trail, because I should be in Georgia now. I should be in Florida now. I should be in a lot of different places right now campaigning, and I'm sitting here. And this will go on for a long time. It's very unfair. The judge is conflicted, as you know. It's very unfair what's going on. And I should be allowed to campaign.
Many times he said, that's very unfair. I should be allowed to campaign. I wanted to get your reaction to that.
Well, I think he's right. This case should not have been brought. And if it were brought, there was no reason to have this right before the election, in my view. But this is becoming the split screen election. Right? Earlier, it was pretty damaging to see the split screen between Trump and different courtrooms. This is even more effective when the other side of the screen shows Biden campaigning in key states like Pennsylvania while he's held in this courtroom. It really brings home something that bothers a lot of Americans, including people who don't particularly like Trump, that this is the weaponization of the criminal legal system. It's something we should all be able to condemn. But in this age of rage, it just does not matter to many people.
And that's true.
I mean, that's it. I mean, if this were so outrageous, you know, to those that, as Jonathan Turley points out, that would, if you asked them if he was responsible for the bubonic plague, they would say yes. That portion, they don't care about the justice system. They don't care about law. They don't care about rules or due process on anything, this entire thing. And it includes the judge here. It includes the court system. This goes throughout. This is what we have talked about for a long, long time. Forget about conspiracy theories. This is happening because of a shared mindset. They don't even have to talk to each other. They don't have to get together and say, hey, look, I'll take him down for this, and you go at him for this. And nope. They already know. It's like a race, in fact, of this shared mindset of these individuals inside the justice system that want to take him down. Well, if you think turnabout isn't fair play, that's the other thing, too. The left and the left media, remember, when he talked about, and the question was, well, Are you going to seek revenge? The left media was looking at this going, oh, he might want to seek revenge. Maybe we should ask him if he wants to seek revenge. Are you kidding me?
Well, I think they asked that question because they know that's what they're about.
Exactly. That's my point, is that you look at this and they pose him as the danger when the left is going at him left and right, and they're okay with it. They don't go to Bragg and say, listen, prosecutor, don't you think you should actually have something before you go at him? They didn't go to Fonnie Willis and say, you know this isn't RICO, so what's the point? No. All of that they ignore. They cover this, the media I'm talking about, they cover this as if it's legitimate. And then the moment, and by the way, Trump's answer to the question, well, no, my revenge will be, correcting the economy and things that are wrong with the country, doing my job. And all of this, and the point is it really isn't, and I think we could probably speak for Jonathan Hurley. Look, he's a Democrat. I think we can speak for him to this extent. It's not to defend Trump. It's to defend the broken justice system. And if they'll go after someone like Trump, then they'll go after anybody. And, of course, we're already seeing that.
Well, the thing about the left is they're insane across the board and they're wrong across the board. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem because, normally if this would be happening, if a president was in trial like this, even 6 months ago, people were saying, well, if Trump is convicted of something or goes to trial, whatever, it's going to, that we won't support him at that point. You see the Trump's numbers are extremely, extremely solid right now. And when you take everything across the board, when you look at this bogus prosecution of Trump, and then you take everything else, you see what's going on right present day. And this is fully supported by Democrats. And then you see the insanity of the pro-Hamas, the pro-Hamas movement and how it exists. We saw, AOC with President Biden right there talking about the great and wonderful protests that are going on at this particular point. They're absolutely bigoted. They're racist. They're using lawfare. They're using bogus prosecutions in order to keep the other presidential candidate off the campaign, trail. They wish to find him guilty by using a rogue prosecutor, a rogue judge, and hopefully a rogue jury is what they're hoping for that doesn't care about the law at all. So you don't care about the law. You don't care about your anti-Semitism, your bigotry, your racism. You don't care that you're pro-Hamas. Put all this together, the border. You don't care about keeping the border safe. You just don't care. You don't care about inflation. You don't care about the suffering of people out there. On all these issues, you just don't care. There's complete chaos from the left. They're selling chaos to the American people. They're selling, number one, and you could say, I might even use this, the Democratic Party is selling anarchy.
Yes.
The Democratic Party wants anarchy. They want anarchy, but with their rogue judges and their rogue prosecutors and their rogue judges and their rogue Department of Justice and the two-tier system of justice that exists out there to go after one political party. They're the party that's pro-terrorist. They're bigoted. They practice identity politics. They're racist. They're anti-Semitic. They don't care about the border. They don't care about your safety. They wish, as we saw, defund the police. They don't care about your own protection. They don't care about you, and they just wish to sow anarchy across the nation in order for them to gain power. They're about power and control, and this is what the Republicans ought to be pounding on a consistent basis. Unfortunately, in Congress, they're fighting among themselves.
Right. And it's insane. All of this is so over the top. It's so blatant. So blatant. And yet millions and millions of Americans just ignore it. I'll say this. I don't think that the coverage of this by the liberal media is getting, in this particular case, in the Bragg case, I don't think this week it's getting, except for, the whole opening arguments thing, which was kind of more of a procedural thing. I don't think it's getting the play that maybe the liberal media or the activists in these newsrooms thought it was going to get or hoped it would get. It's on social media. It's, the whole jury selection thing. I think the biggest story on the jury selection, well, maybe there were two. One was how long it took, but also the one with the one nurse who was on the jury and then had to basically say, well, I don't think I can be fair because now my family and friends are asking me questions about being on the jury, which was weird, but then she's taken off the jury. But then the start of the opening arguments in the case, it really is more of a procedural type coverage. It isn't if it were a legitimate case, it would be nonstop OJ trial type coverage because the media would have, and we've talked about this, they would have every one of their legal experts. Well, here's the problem. Here's what he did. And here's why it's against the law, and blah, 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 blah. Everything, all the coverage in the media is about the procedural stuff. Yeah. It's not about the case. Anything else.
It isn't about the charges because they can't make a debate point on the actual charges.
Right. And that was from the beginning. Remember when I think it was the first hearing, and it was like the media was standing around going, anybody know what the charge is? Anybody know what these 34 counts are about? I mean, anybody have any connection to Bragg's office? Can we get some insight on this? Because they couldn't find it. And the legal experts are nowhere to be found in this. They're not out there like they normally would be in a legal case of this magnitude. We're talking about a former president.
Right. The only thing you hear from the legal community is how this is a bogus case. And you did hear that even on CNN up front, and even some of the legal experts on MSNBC initially came on when these charges go, well, there's
nothing here.
They're making stuff up. And so they just stopped covering the legal aspect of it.
Exactly. That's it. They're all looking around the room going, and that first day, I remember that first day, that afternoon, it was so eerily quiet. And then that's when it started to come out from, the so-called legal experts in the liberal media going, yeah, we don't see it. We don't see anything here. This is 34 counts of nothing. And the judge should have tossed this thing and said, we will not make a mockery of my courtroom, of the justice system, and also anything else that you want to bring up here, because this is a complete sham is what this is.
We talk about when the justice system fails somebody who isn't a celebrity or a politician, and the news that gets and what recourses you have. I think one of the things that worries people is if they can go after Trump, if they can succeed with Trump by making up charges, and they can get a rogue juror, they can get a rogue prosecutor, a rogue judge, and rogue jurors to not follow the law, then if you're a conservative activist in those states, if you have anything to do with it, they can just make up stuff against you. You're talking then about a banana republic. You're talking about banana states. You're talking about, you're talking about totalitarianism, because the rule of law means nothing anymore.
Right.
And for Democrats, that's where they stand. Democrats, and I would say the majority of Democrat voters right now, believe that the law should be applied to Donald Trump differently than anybody else.
Yep.
Because obviously the hypocrisy is there. Turley mentioned it with the whole Hillary Clinton thing. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton actually used campaign money to do exactly what Trump didn't do.
Right.
And what they claim Trump did is what Hillary did.
Right. Right.
And there's no prosecution of Hillary.
Nope.
And so that's the thing, the two-tier system of justice. The justice system is being used to destroy your political enemies, and they're not using actual law to do it. They're making up law as they go along.
Right.
And then saying, okay, we'll convict him, and then he won't win the presidency. And then down the road, even though they probably know he's, a court's going to overturn it, a federal court, doesn't matter. 866-90-RED-I.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. We'll get to some of your calls and comments on the Trump trial coming up following the bottom of the hour. Just reading here, just the news, and just briefly here, because, of course, we keep talking about the anti-Semitic pro-terrorist protests going on at college campuses. The Anti-Defamation League, here are the grades on anti-Semitism, or teaching against anti-Semitism for some of these schools. An F grade goes to Harvard, F to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, F to Michigan State, F to Princeton, F to SUNY Purchase, New York, S to SUNY Rockland Community College, F to Stanford University, F to Swarthmore College, F to Tufts University, F to University of Chicago, F to University of Massachusetts at Amherst, F to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, F to the University of Virginia. Of the 8 Ivy League schools, only one, Dartmouth College, received a C. The rest of the Ivy League colleges received a grade D or F, which means they are actively teaching racism and anti-Semitism on these campuses.
Right. Wow.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. This is really interesting. I believe that, let me see when he came out with this here. This was yesterday. Andrew McCarthy, National Review. He's written a couple. He's been following this the Trump case for a while here, and just says, "Well, let me get you this. This came out. He's got so much that he's written. This came out at 6:30 a.m. yesterday. The Trump indictment is Bragg's version of Stop the Steal regarding the 2016 election, but he goes through the problems with the case. He goes, we spent much of the time on the manifold flaws in Bragg's prosecution, including a business records falsification indictment against Trump that Bragg, the progressive prosecutor, would bring against no one but a political enemy, the impropriety that Bragg, a state prosecutor, is purporting to enforce a federal campaign law without a peep of protest from the collusive Biden Justice Department, naturally in a matter that both the Department of Justice and Federal Election Committee, the federal agencies that actually have jurisdiction over the matter, decided not to pursue against Trump. The fact that Bragg is accomplishing this by making up his own version of what federal law requires, again, without any pushback from the feds, although you can only imagine the howling we'd be hearing if this were being done to a Democrat, and the fact that this criminal case mirroring New York Attorney General Letitia James' outrageous civil fraud trial against Trump involves an alleged fraud scheme in which the state can prove no victims. Trump is charged with falsifying his records with fraudulent intent, but the state is not claiming that anything or anyone, including the state itself, lost a penny. Then this came out later on in the day. Let me just get to it here. Okay. I'm reading this off my phone because I can't actually find it on the National Review website, but it gets on my phone. Bragg implements the plan to mislead the jury about the charges. No sooner did I complete the last post than did Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, an elected Democrat, make a profit out of me. In the post, I explained that Bragg was trying to hoodwink the jury into believing that he had charged the former president, Donald Trump, with conspiracy, an agreement to commit a crime, in this instance, a scheme with David Pecker and Michael Cohen to suppress politically damaging information. In reality, the grand jury did not charge Trump with conspiracy, and it is not a crime to suppress politically damaging information. So it could not be a conspiracy to do so. Beginning with the state's opening statement, Assistant DA Matthew Colangelo, formerly a top official at the Biden Justice Department, proclaimed to the jury this case is about criminal conspiracy and cover-up. To repeat, the crime of conspiracy is not charged in the case. And in the opening statement, he proclaimed the case is about criminal conspiracy and a cover-up.
Right.
There is no criminal conspiracy charge.
No.
I mean, this is just so incredibly bad. To repeat, the crime of conspiracy is not charged in the case. Charged instead are 34 counts of falsifying business records. That offense is normally a misdemeanor, but Bragg enhanced it into a felony by claiming that in making false bookkeeping entries, Trump fraudulently intended to cover up another crime. Nowhere in the indictment does the grand jury allege that this crime was a conspiracy. One of the more outrageous constitutional violations that has occurred in this case is that Bragg has attempted to alter the grand jury's indictment with his own statement of facts, a document he drafted and published in connection with the unsealing of the indictment as if it were part of the indictment. I mean, my God, you're talking about, they know. They don't care. Bragg knows this is going to get blown out eventually, but all they want to get the prosecution, even if it's completely bogus, even if they violate his constitutional rights, even if they make up stuff, it doesn't matter as long as you get Trump.
Tie him up in the courtroom for as long as you can, and it doesn't matter to what extent you have to go. Look at that. Just including a document that is nothing.
Under the Constitution's Fifth Amendment, which has been held to apply to states, no kidding, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on the presentation or indictment of a grand jury. In this case, the grand jury indicted Trump for falsifying business records, not criminal conspiracy. Now, it's bogus, the falsifying business records. They know it, and so they're attempting to up the charge to something that they haven't charged him with. In this case, there was not criminal conspiracy, but Bragg's statement of facts, so-called, is not part of the indictment, yet he has used it to modify the indictment as if Trump were charged with criminal conspiracy. That's not allowed. The charges must be stated with specificity in the indictment, and it gets worse. Bragg's statement of facts does not utter the word conspiracy. He uses the word scheme. As I contended in the earlier post, this is because suppressing politically damaging information is not, in fact, a crime, and therefore it cannot be the objective of a conspiracy. The DA employed the word scheme because of its pejorative connotation. In fact, the agreement between Trump, Pecker, and Cohen was not illegal, even if Bragg calls it a scheme and Colangelo calls it a conspiracy. The non-disclosure agreement that Trump and Cohen used as a means to suppress information about porn star Stormy Daniels' alleged 2006 extramarital affair fling with Trump was a lawful contract, not a crime. Wow. Bragg is trying to convict Trump of conspiracy without having charged Trump with conspiracy. He has injected into the case federal campaign finance law that he has no jurisdiction to even enforce.
Right.
In order to obscure this constitutionally offensive gambit. We'll see if he gets away with it. Well, he isn't going to on appeal, but what he hopes is I can do anything in a court. That he should lose his damn law license.
Oh, man, he should be disbarred.
It should be gone and disbarred for what he's doing here in this case.
And the fact that the judge is allowing all of this.
Same thing.
Statement of facts, as if they're facts.
Yep. And they're not.
And as if, and implying that it's part of the charges against him. Implying, by the way, that the grand jury came up with these items when they did not. Are we at the point where, because if we can say a man is a woman, well, this is my interpretation of what the grand jury handed down. That's basically what you have here.
Yeah. Words mean nothing.
They mean nothing, even in a court of law.
Right. Legal law means nothing.
Right.
It's whatever we wish to interpret it as.
Right.
Hey, if a man can be a woman, why can't we interpret this however we want?
Right.
And that's what has so many people worried. That's what has us worried, because if they're not going to get away with it in the federal courts. No. But the fact is, they're not going to stop doing this. This isn't going to end.
And how long do you let this go? How long does this, again?
The only thing that can solve things like this is by punishing the prosecutor for doing something like this.
And this is what needs to happen. Trump, if Trump wins, that's a victory for Trump. That's not necessarily a victory for this kind of behavior.
No.
Because it doesn't stop them from coming after him. The Democrats will go after him. They'll impeach him. Look, they'll have 4 more years if he gets elected. They'll have 4 more years. You can fit, I think, the Democrats could try and fit, if they were to gain power in the House and keep it in the Senate. I think they can fit a total of 8 impeachments in that 4 years. This is where it's going. The line must be drawn in the justice system. The political stuff is going to play out the way it's going to play out, and the American people can decide if they're going to tolerate that. But we cannot, as a society, tolerate this kind of... This is, by the way, how is this not illegal?
It is.
How is this not a crime? Think about what he's doing here.
He's making stuff up.
He's lying, essentially giving the jury false information. How is that not a crime? How is the judge not coming down hard, not only throwing this out, but saying, you know what? You'll be lucky to get out of this with your law license, Mr. Bragg. Because this won't be tolerated.
It's funny because Turley was saying in any other court, I don't agree about that, but he said this is New York. New York is so far gone. When you think about it, you think of the James civil suit against Trump, which has no basis in merit whatsoever.
Right.
They're making up crimes as they go along. They're making up fines as they go along. Everything they can do to destroy a man and his business. But you think about it, if I'm looking to put a business somewhere, I'm just staying away from New York.
Right.
Sorry, I'm staying away. I'm not going to do any business in New York at all, because if I at all state my politics in any way, manner, or form, I don't know, or if I do something to irk. What was the other one that they? Well, we had talked about the Trump trial here. You've just set the precedent, and I've asked any legal person to tell me where I'm wrong on this, with going after Trump as you did in the civil court for fraud. Then every single dealership that lists an MSRP, that you never sell anything at is committing fraud, according to the law in New York State.
Right.
It's actually a worse fraud because they do it on a consistent basis year after year after year, and nobody ever pays it. Nobody ever pays MSRP, and so they are setting a value that does not exist for that vehicle.
Anybody who challenges anything or negotiates anything in writing, anyone, sorry, you're committing fraud.
866-98-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Shell Rotella with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Let us head to you. We go to Isaac in Connecticut about the Trump trial. Hi, Isaac. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Good morning. So the federal prosecutor decided not to bring charges against Trump at the federal level, and the prosecutor resurrected, put it all together, but it's not really legit, and everybody's confused as to how, why, how, and I think this is part of a conspiracy, or they're colluding, because at the state level, Trump cannot pardon himself. If they would have brought the charges at the federal level, he could have pardoned himself.
We got your statement. We're having problems. You got really some bad interference in that in the phone call. We do appreciate the call, though. Nobody's confused about the pardon part of it. We've discussed it before, but that really doesn't apply here because the fact is all they want is a conviction. Trump wouldn't be able to pardon himself until he became president, and that would be overturned anyway.
Right.
This case, if he's found guilty, will be overturned.
Yeah. I don't have any doubt.
We're well aware, though, of the effort to try to charge him in the state level because he can't pardon himself. But the problem with it is there is no case.
Right.
It's just like the Georgia case. The Georgia case, the same mindset, but they're making up crimes. There is no RICO violation with the president because in order to have a RICO violation in Georgia, you would have to be a criminal enterprise. They're trying to say that a political campaign, the Trump campaign for president, is a criminal enterprise. Well, you can't do that because it's not a criminal enterprise. You can have enterprises where criminal activity takes place, but that makes those individuals guilty. RICO does not apply because a criminal enterprise has to be the mafia, a group that exists only to create crime.
Right.
And a political campaign has never been viewed as a conspiracy.
Right. Yep. And, look, we can all see it. The problem is our concern with this is that it's allowed to go on as if it's a legitimate charge on any of these things, and the judges aren't stopping these cases cold. They should.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes. Any beer in the refrigerator?
I'll be right back.
It's still there. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
I wonder who brought it in, though. I mean,
it had to have been the crew working on the floor stuff.
Okay.
Because we noticed it
when there was construction being done.
And it was after a weekend, so we assumed that, or maybe was it a Thursday night? Maybe that we noticed it.
Maybe it's the Bongino folks.
It could be.
Accuse them. Accuse Dan's staff of.
Yeah. I'm guessing not. They're more coffee people.
We all are, aren't we?
Yeah, there's some serious coffee people for sure. Yeah, it had to have been. I'm guessing it was. I don't know. You never know. I heard there's radio people in this building, so those people are weird. They do anything. So.
All right, so here's this headline. You ready?
All right.
Gone with the New York wind. 3 more offshore windmill projects hit the rocks despite subsidies. They can't make any money.
Oh, darn.
Oh, did you see part of the problem in California because so many people have solar panels? That there's an abundance of electricity when nobody needs it, and so the value of electricity goes negative.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're just wasting electricity because they're producing so much. Like at midday, the solar panels are working and remember, the grid's got to buy everything.
Oh, yeah, right.
But they're offering nothing now because there's such
we don't need it.
Glut. And so when they need it, when it starts getting dark is when the solar panels aren't working anymore.
Right.
And they're saying it's creating just absolute insanity in the grid marketplace, which is probably why, it's like, well, wait a minute, you have a glut of electricity but nobody's using it.
Yeah.
Can't store it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we're going to continue to make you pay more. And not just for what you use.
Right.
But we're going to make you pay more just because you use any. Once you sign up, we're going to check to see what your income is.
Right.
Is that's still going forward? I haven't seen where they're stopping that.
I didn't see where they backtracked on it,
Right.
And it starts at $25,000 a year. This added energy fee surcharge.
I mean, it's a proposal; it hasn't hit yet.
Right. I didn't see anywhere though that they backtracked on it.
But here it is: is offshore wind a perennial infant industry, despite receiving countless billions of dollars in subsidies over the last few decades? These energy products are still failing to launch. On Friday, 3 New York offshore wind projects hit the rocks owing to rising costs and technical problems. The New York State Energy Research and Development Authority called off contract negotiations with 3 wind developers after turbine manufacturer GE Vernova said it could not deliver 18-megawatt turbines for the projects. As a result, the projects would have to be redesigned with more smaller turbines that would make them not economically viable. GE's renewable business had planned to produce the 18-megawatt turbines, but last year decided to limit the turbines to a maximum of 16.5 megawatts. According to Bloomberg News, bigger and more powerful turbines have recently been toppling over, requiring extensive repairs. This is one reason GE's renewable business lost $1.44 billion last year, which was an improvement from its $2.24 billion loss in 2024. The offshore wind industry received a strong tailwind from the Inflation Reduction Act, which included tax credits that cover 30% or more of the project's cost. Think about that. 30% of a project's cost will be paid for with tax credits, and they still can't make it.
Yeah, right.
The law also subsidized the domestic manufacturing of components, which New York wind developers and their suppliers plan to exploit by making parts at new plants in the state. But the industry has also faced significant headwinds. More than a dozen projects in U.S. and Europe have been canceled or delayed in the last year owing to rising labor and material costs and higher interest rates. the cost of building an offshore wind project rose by 60% from 2021 to 2024. Wow. 3 years, 60%. New York regulators recently struck agreements with offshore developers at prices of around $150 per megawatt hour, more than a third higher than those in 2019. For example, wholesale price for national gas power, $30 a megawatt hour. Wind power, 5 times more. Wow. New Yorkers will get stuck paying excessive prices for offshore wind for 25 years to meet their political class's climate goals. So even if offshore wind costs drop, the state will be locked into exorbitant long-term contracts. So it doesn't matter what the price happens. That's the contract.
Yeah, right. You're in.
You're in. Wow. Meanwhile, state grid operators have warned that New York City could face power shortages as soon as this summer owing to the shutdown of gas and nuclear power plants, another climate policy fiasco. Jeez.
Yeah.
And as we said it again, does anybody believe that the way to run an economy is for stupid people to decide how an economy should run? Stupid people, Biden, Harris. Do you think they understand electricity? You think they understand electrical engineering? Do you believe any Democrat actually does? Do you believe that people that stupid should be the ones who say, here's what we're going to do. Solar and wind can run an entire grid.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. Someone told us we might have to add nuclear in there. But when they won the campaign based on solar and wind, it was after he became president where he said, okay, well, we got to put nuclear in because someone told him, you're an idiot. Hey, idiot, you can't do this. You can't run a grid on solar and wind. Oh, okay. Well, then grudgingly we'll have to at least say nuclear. But you have idiots that decide we can run an economy. Idiots vote them in. Oh, that guy can run an economy. Yep, that Biden guy, he certainly can run all the industries in America today. Let's start with electricity.
Yeah, of course.
And so they go solar and wind, and it's going to be cheaper. So they lie to you. It's much more expensive. Next thing you know, there's car costs are through the roof because of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
They try to mandate you out of your gasoline vehicle into something that is less productive and efficient, an electric vehicle that's much more expensive. And then they claim they're going to run it all on solar and wind when they're going to have to increase the power amount in the next decade over 40%, and they have no way of doing it. And so everything becomes more expensive. People can't afford the product that they're actually selling to you, and nobody wants the product, and they can't make a profit on it. And idiots in the United States goes, oh, that's the way to run an economy. That's how to do it. Yep.
Yep, and
idiots, and idiots,
and they keep voting the same way.
I can't say it. Idiot. We're absolute idiots.
Yes. You know that whole thing where a couple of weeks ago we stepped outside to see darkness? Remember that?
Yeah.
Hey, pretty soon in California, you won't have to go outside to see that during the day.
It's coming down the pike, and it's going to hit everybody. Why? How many times do we have to say it? You can manipulate an economy, you can manipulate markets, but you can't change economics, and you can't change reality.
And by the time it gets there, by the time we get to the point of, oh, wait a minute, that's why the grid keeps failing. That's why we're limited. Remember the whole debate on changing the clock? Wow, yeah, but we need more daylight during, the morning hours. Kids going to school, farmers, and, whatnot, and everything else. Now we're going to get to listen. your allotted time, even odd days on electricity, your allotted time on the day that you're allotted some electricity will be from 6 to 8 a.m. and then from 6 to 8 p.m. Good luck.
Your phone must be shut off how many hours a day?
Yeah, right. I would actually welcome that.
Not me.
Sorry, it's the law. I got to turn it off. This is I saw where this there's this YouTube family that I follow, and they actually are off grid, and they've always been off grid. Now they don't live in the States; they live in Azerbaijan, which, if you're looking at a map, south of them is Iran, and north of them is Russia.
You may not want to know what's going on if you live there.
Well, it's interesting. Exactly. It's interesting because, they run a farm and everything else, but then they posted one video where they actually put it in the thumbnail, no electricity, no gas, and basically this is how we cook things and warm things and everything else. And they don't talk. They don't sit there. They don't start the video with, "Hey, guys, welcome back." They don't do any of that. They're just doing their stuff, and their son kind of films them. And it's actually a really great channel because there's no talking whatsoever. There's very little, I guess, the boasting that a lot of social media types do. They're just doing the work that they got to do. And I thought to myself, how many Americans would even tolerate that for a second? You're operating by, I think inside probably kerosene lamps, although they really don't show anything inside. It's always daytime when they're doing work out there on their farm. How many could actually do it? How many actually want to get to that point? Because, with these mandates, it won't be long. It won't be long. Because one of two things has to happen. It either has to go the way of the EV mandate with the OEMs. When the OEMs last fall, it's seemingly a number of them just kind of all remember they wrote the White House. Hey, we can't get this done. They slammed the brakes. Ford saying, well, the F-150, nobody's really buying it. Tesla laying off 10% of their workforce recently. Unless it happens that way, but who's going to be in charge of saying, hey, we're the grid people, and our grid is not going to sustain because we're not going to have enough energy the closer we get to all of these. And you got to outlaw the old behavior. We already see it with this administration saying, well, you can't use natural gas. You can't do this. You can't do that, which is, by the way, stupid because you're creating a redundancy over and over again. We've seen it. We pointed it out. And we're not, we're not the geniuses here. We're just simple observers. The point being, anybody and everybody can see this when you just open your eyes, and yet you keep voting time and time again for this kind of ludicrous behavior that is costing you through the roof. You're paying for this, and the only thing that is happening, the only benefit is the political benefit of those implementing such ludicrous policy. That's it.
866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Join the conversation using the Shell Rotella hotline, 866-907-3339. Red Eye Radio at Shell Rotella. What matters is inside.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Sorry, just don't know why during the break I went, I haven't looked at a Babylon Bee headline in a week. Columbia University students reject a two-campus solution.
Oh, wow. Again, that's it's about as accurate as you can get.
Yeah.
Wow.
WNBA's Los Angeles Sparks forced to leave California due to minimum wage hike.
Oh, man. Yeah. Again, also true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, if they live in Los Angeles and they're making $76,000, that's
right. Yeah.
It's not a lot in Los Angeles.
No.
Are they going to go to the WNBA players and say, look, since you're rich athletes, how's that going in Los Angeles where the mayor asked for the rich to basically buy homes for the homeless?
Right.
Or house the homeless, whatever that means.
I don't know. I would think all the rich are just, there's a long line, right?
Well, we can't find any rich, including Mark Cuban, that are willing to pay extra in taxes, even though they claim the taxes are unfair, and even though they want an increase in the corporate tax rate, which is a stealth tax that is paid for by the consumer, which hurts the poor the most.
Yeah.
So, they won't pay any taxes, so are they going to pay extra money to house the homeless and migrants? I haven't seen. How's that working in L.A.? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I would think they would be all, forming a long line by now. They care more, don't they?
Yes. They care more because they had stated at one point $5 million per eligible reparations recipient.
Yeah,
even though they decided to offer zero.
Yeah.
That's one of the funniest things out there because remember when Newsom came out with it and all this hype and we have formed the reparations task force.
Yeah.
And the reparations task force is going to be listening to everybody out there to see. Here's the thing, because the reparations task force said they were going to listen to, all sides.
Yeah.
I don't know any side in that movement that was discussing that there needs to be reparations that said zero.
Don't remember that.
No. I don't remember anyone because remember, it was supposed to be above zero. They were trying to figure the number. And then when the figure started coming out that it would bankrupt the state 50 times over, they said, never mind. It was never about money to begin with.
Yeah, look, why is everybody always worried about money? This isn't about money. Well, yeah, it's where you started. Can you imagine the hero, Governor Newsom, starting the whole conversation? Listen, we're going to seek reparations of $0.
Because it's not about the money.
Right.
They should have started. That should have been the starting point.
Right.
It was the end point.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley and I'm Gary McNamara. Just looking back to yesterday and Earth Day, the Earth Day poll. Climate change, one of the last priorities for Americans. Reading here, Wendell, I can't read his last name, from Breitbart. Climate change is tied as the last priority for Americans, a recent Gallup poll found, marking another year that the issue remains the least important priority. Global warming is now dubbed climate change because the Earth does not consistently warm. They changed the term to climate change, which justify the claims, regardless of whether the Earth warms or cools.
Right.
We know that.
Mm-hmm.
You see, Gallup found it was tied for the nation's last priority. All right. Number one, immigration.
Right. Okay.
Number two, the government poor leadership. Well, that's sort of the same.
And I guess it's such a broad thing, you know.
Well, look at this here. Well, immigration 28%.
Yeah.
All right. So they did it. I mean, it wasn't like you got to pick one.
Right.
Immigration 28%. The government poor leadership 19%. Economy in general 14%. High cost of living and inflation 11%. What we have said, that's it. Poverty, hunger, homelessness, which can be tied to the high cost of living and inflation for a significant number of people.
Yeah.
And so you have, you look at that right there, 47, 63, 74, 80%. 80% of the public is worried right there about immigration, the government, poor leadership, economy in general, high cost of living, inflation, and poverty, hunger, and homelessness, 80%. The rest of it, unifying the country, only 4%. That's the top problem, knowing that isn't possible.
Yeah.
By the way, that's never been possible. It hasn't been possible in the history of the United States. So you're never going to unify everybody. You may unify them, for holidays and things like that, but on the issues, they're never going to be unified. And it's going to be a long time before we have a country that is even unified, in general without specifics, because you have so many on the left now that reject the Constitution of the United States. If you reject the document of the United States that sets down the ultimate law, then you're never going to have unity. That's not going to happen, not even on a generalized basis. But you have unifying the country at 4%, crime and violence 3%, elections, election reform 3%, race relations 3%, abortion 3%. Look at this here. Ethics, moral, religious, family decline 3%, foreign policy, foreign aid, focus overseas 3%, unemployment, jobs 2%. Well, that's because unemployment's low. People can get a job. Federal budget deficit, federal debt 2%. Federal budget deficit and federal debt, 2%. We told you.
Yeah.
But high cost of living, inflation, 11%. Economy in general, 14%. Well, you've got 25% right there that are extremely concerned about the economy and the high cost of living and inflation. And then you get down to the federal budget deficit, federal debt, only 2%. A significant portion of Americans have not yet tied inflation to the debt. Right? That's the only conclusion you come to.
That's the only way that math happens. Yep.
Look at this. Wage issues, 2%. Healthcare, 2%. Education, 2%. Judicial system, courts, and laws, 2%. That would be higher in my book. War in the Middle East, 2%. Environmental pollution, climate change, 2%. Racism 3%. So there you go, 3%, 2%. Remember during the Obama administration when all they talked about was race relations and climate change, and so many of them, I remember the one survey they did, there was like 28 items on it. Like number 27 was race relations. Number 28 was climate change. And that's all they talked about. And you and I came up with the theory that during the Obama administration, that Obama and the Democrats talked about climate change and race relations, because as long as you talk about that, you can virtue signal that you're better because you're concerned about it. But the American public really wasn't concerned about it. So basically, you were talking about doing better in an area that Americans weren't concerned about, and that's a safe political place to be, because you still promote the virtue signaling that you care, but nobody really cares or views what you're talking about as a problem.
Well, it is the blah 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 of issues, right? If you think about it, if it's the bottom issues, and you're always talking about it, then people are just hearing blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Let me be clear. Blah 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 blah.
With a yada yada thrown in.
Exactly. And that's basically what you have politically. And look, we'll go out there. It doesn't matter. No one is going to, everybody is just going to hear wah, 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 blah, 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 and furthermore, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, we can go on with our agenda. I mean, we came to the conclusion that the Obama administration and Obama himself likely lied so much because, well, at least they had, I'll say this, maybe it wasn't why they did it, it was the effect of it, and they certainly benefited from this effect, and that is you've got the GOP just saying, liar, 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 and the GOP's responding to everything with the word liar, and then everybody gets tired of the GOP just calling them liars all the time. And we looked at it and said, yeah, but it applies if it's true. And that may have been a tactic politically, but frankly, the American people, look, if you're going to be willfully ignorant on all of these things that govern your life every single day, when we talked about energy and the grid and where we're going, and we can see it, everybody can see it from here. But if you're going to be willfully ignorant and put the blinders on every day as a matter of practice, then what can't you get away with? I mean, think about the Obama years and all of that, and the Affordable Care Act and all of that, garbage and how they lied to get it done. And then think about where we are now, because it was toward the end of the Obama years that they really started pushing the liberal transgender activist movement.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Officially. And we said, look, this isn't over. Even if a Democrat doesn't win after Obama is gone, it's not over. The next Democrat will come in, and then they're going to take the baton, and they're going to run even faster with it, and here we are.
Yeah, it was during that time, it was the second term of Obama, when you really got to the whole Title IX thing in the Justice Department. Remember the bathroom bills and
right,
all that, and there were blue states that were going to boycott red states if they didn't allow men to use women's bathrooms.
Right, right.
And then the Charlotte Observer, girls need to get used to men's genitalia.
Right.
My God. I mean, what a bunch of perverts. Seriously.
Yeah.
What a bunch of freaking perverts.
And
I mean, this is it's unbelievable. Now, we're seeing the backlash now, but again, they're stronger than ever. I mean, they're pushing more than ever. I'm not saying they're stronger than ever because they have been exposed. They were stronger back then. People were afraid to talk about it. You and I have been blunt on that. A lot of times in the past, people have been afraid to talk about race relations. I remember when I became a talk show host, first piece of advice I get, stay away from talking about race. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk. Don't tell me, hey, by the way, you're a talk show host. Talk about anything you want, but I'd stay away from these topics.
Right.
Well, no, we live in the United States of America. The more controversial a topic is supposed to be, or I'm told it's supposed to be, the more I want to tear it apart, the more you want to tear it apart. It's like, what do you think we do here? You know, we don't have to talk here. We don't have to talk about what Taylor Swift is doing.
No, we don't.
So if we don't need to have to talk about what Taylor Swift is doing, is that if that's not on the mandated notes from the boss, talk about Taylor Swift, then we're going to talk about the things that we believe are a concern to the adults of society, because you got to pay for all this crap.
By the way, did you hear what she said on Monday? No, I'm just
no. I do love I will say this. I do love the reviews of the album from complete suck to genius. I mean, it's just,
yeah. Yeah.
And we said this a long time ago. The dumbest thing you can possibly do, I mean, you can tear apart somebody's lyrics and say, you know, whether they're filthy or whatever. But when it comes to music, to sit there and tell somebody your music sucks, they're going to tell me my music sucks. Who wins? You can't win that one because you like what you like.
Yeah, right.
And you like it for a variety of different reasons.
Right. Exactly.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they went, really? They said, because I was talking about getting my first transistor radio. And the song, I still hear it today and go, wow, brings back great nostalgic memories. The first song I heard on my transistor radio was the Cowsills, The Rain, the Park, and Other Things. I hear that song, I get goosebumps. Now, am I into that song? No. But it reminds me of that moment of getting my first radio, which was huge to me.
Right.
I was thinking about that yesterday, how important radio was. I mean, it was like, you know, when you're in would have been in 7th grade. I remember getting it, and you're just everything was what you heard from your teachers and your parents. And to get that outside world, which was just music.
Right.
Which just added something. But, yeah, that was the first song and somebody went, really? That song you liked? I go, well, it was a pop tune, and yeah. It's like.
Well, I remember, and I think it was.
I did.
I think it was. I think it was Nowhere Man or something by the Beatles. And I remember getting in the backseat. I was in the backseat of my mom's car as a kid. And my mom was listening to KTSA in San Antonio, in fact. And I said, Mom, what is that? And I just remember hearing this harmony, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that? And she said, what? That's the Beatles. And that's all I remember. So the Beatles and I'm not the biggest Beatles fan, but that, you know, that the harmony in those songs, like Nowhere Man, I mean, that's always been a draw for me. And then instantly, if I hear it, boom.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I love actually observing the debate going on and the people furious either way about Taylor Swift. I mean, because it's music.
Yeah. And
music can be poppy. It can be total fluff. It can be more serious. It can be more aggressive. I mean, there's a variety, and I like so many forms of music. So I just find it interesting when people get stuck on, you know, one thing. No, she's the greatest thing that's ever happened to music. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's what I enjoy watching the debate against. I love watching the debate on sports and other things that are really completely useless debates, and the amount of passion and fury and emotion that people waste on those debates.
It's like, stand up and go outside for a few minutes.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Well, the protest, you wonder how this is all going to end, because the protests, the pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist protests now are, you know, you see they're growing throughout the country. I saw somebody make the point on Twitter or X. You notice that almost all the protests are on campuses in blue states. It's like, okay.
Right. Yeah.
This is entirely something that the left owns on it. I don't know if that's completely true. I don't know if there's been protest. Otherwise, at least they haven't been publicized as much, though.
You would think we would hear about them if they were, you know.
Locally, in the local news, you would hear it.
You would think
locally.
so, yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.